Hey guys, how's it going? My name is Hiram, and as you might already know, I've been live streaming the Austin, Texas protest. Welcome to the very first episode of Hiram Rewind, which is going to be just a series of episodes where I go back and look at the footage that I recorded, mainly just the highlights of the occurrences or the happenings. We will, react to it, maybe add some more context because I know that watching it at home really leaves out a lot of the emotion and a lot of the context that you experience when you're physically there. We have over 140 hours of footage of protests from Tulsa, Oklahoma, and Austin, Texas. So without further ado, let's get started, guys.
Oh, you're so tough.
He didn't do anything.
He didn't do anything.
As you can tell, like during this beginning portion of my recording, I mean, I was recording horizontally, vertically. And I was a lot more vocal about the way that I felt. And in this particular occasion, I felt pretty angry because the individual who got arrested I didn't see them doing anything but taunting the police. And it looks like I always find myself at the right place at the right time. I was a little bit less brave here than I was initially. I didn't have all the equipment I had. I literally only had my phone. So, and as you can tell, like, it was definitely a lot more scary because the police is ready to shoot at a moment's notice. I mean, they were aiming their guns. Like they were aiming their guns at people that were just protesting at a distance without any weapons or anything. I mean, like they were just ready to try to disperse crowds. It was incredibly intimidating, especially because that was the first night, that I was ever out there, and I didn't know what to expect. As you can tell, like there was a ton of APD out there. I mean, I say easily in that area there was 50 officers. In the last, 2 weeks, there's only been like at most 15 to 20 officers, and that's Latanya. I love Latanya. I'll let you guys listen to the beautiful things she had to say.
If you know it was wrong, just raise your hand. This will be a start of the end of violence. I come to be grown. Raise your hand. If you think it was wrong, raise your hand. I see a guy back there want to raise your hand. Raise your hand, baby. Raise your hand. Him in the back. Raise your hand up. Yes, ma'am. That's all it takes. Just raise your hand.
Not a single officer
He raised his hand.
raised their hand. Maybe one in the back at most, but it was ridiculous. None of the officers were really listening to what she was saying.
We want to see. Raise your hand. If he was killed wrong, that's all these people want. Raise your hand. I didn't come out here to throw nothing at y'all. I didn't come out here to hurt y'all. I didn't come out here to start shit. He was killed in the wrong way.
Before Latanya stepped in, there was a lot of tension. You guys saw the two arrests. Guns were being pointed at protesters. Multiple non-lethal weapons were being pointed at protesters, including mace or the OC spray. And she really changed the tone for the rest of the night. This speech was a complete turn in the way that the circumstances went that night.
Y'all jealous of the thugs. If they're thugs, why y'all hating? Why y'all killing them? Half of y'all got a size 3 dick that's sitting up here. That's why y'all mad with them black men, because they're mendingos and they've been fucking y'all wives. That's the real reason why racism is going on. That's the real reason, because y'all got them small dicks and y'all taking it out on everybody. So y'all have a good night on that.
Yes, ma'am. Speak that. Speak that. Yeah.
Oh. So, every time the protesters got on I-35, there's definitely a threat of less lethal. Um, and especially during the earlier days, there was a lot of less lethal being used. I think it was somewhere at this point that I got maced. I got shot at. I never got hit, but maybe partially hit by the beanbag rounds. But there was just no. It's too chaotic. There's no way to really avoid getting hit. So this is where I got maced, and this I got maced the most directly in this instance. That group you see right there is a group of people helping somebody that was injured. That man with the purple bandana, and there's a medic there trying to help him. That group is literally dedicated, and right at that instance, they maced the entire group of
We just got
individuals
maced.
helping that
Sorry
man,
about that,
including
guys.
the man that they were helping.
I
And
just got
so
maced, and
they
there was
took
just
away
a
the
girl
man to
trying to
try
help
to
that
give
guy
him
that's
medical
after me at
attention,
the moment.
but again, not before macing him straight in the face, and me, and everyone else trying to help him. APD was not trying to figure out what was going on. They were not asking questions. They were just macing and shooting any protesters they thought might be a threat. That was a really upsetting moment for me because to me it was very obvious that we were helping out an injured man, and to APD, it didn't matter. It seriously did not matter. I mean, they ended up, I believe, injuring more people than they ended up helping by trying to give this man medical attention.
Well, I'm definitely feeling that mace now.
And I keep calling it mace, but it's technically OC spray. Oh, this is a good example of kind of how injuries looked with the bean backgrounds. This man got shot, and it's a risk because this happened within minutes of the other man who got injured, and we were helping. Who that ended up being that they sprayed all of us. So it was scary to even just have a medic come up because the medics themselves were in danger. Like it was just. It was like being at war. Like there was just no guarantee, medic or not, that you weren't going to get hit or injured trying to help someone else.
They're looking to shoot at this crowd right here, helping this man.
They were aiming their guns this direction. I mean, they were aiming their gun any direction they saw any protesters. Again, without asking any questions or trying to determine whether or not there was some kind of medical attention going
Those
on.
pockets often end up being people who are receiving medical attention. So
That man received a shot with a beanbag round, but thankfully it wasn't anything too serious. Like he wasn't severely injured. I mean, the injury is bad. Like it's a really deep wound, but it's nothing life-threatening or that requires stitches or hospitalization. And I'm not sure what group is out here. Like at some point I was able to determine, well, this is MRB, this is just America, but this is very early on in the protests, and I don't think there was any particular group organizing or leading the group of protesters outside. So A lot of it was just kind of organic, right? People moving onto I-35 and stuff. There might have been groups already, guiding crowds and um, getting people on I-35 and everything, but it wasn't very clear. I mean, it's just there was people everywhere. There was hundreds of people everywhere. So um, to me, it seemed more like chaos than an organized event at that moment. I hear what sounds like a MRB chanting. Now that I look back and I recognize the voices and I recognize the chants, I think the chants right now are coming from the MRB group. So they may have been partially in charge of some of the group members there. I know they not everyone there was there for the Mike Ramos Brigade or with the Mike Ramos Brigade.
Here they come. Yeah, they're pushing. They're pushing up on the protesters now. I believe trying to get them out of the highway.
So you could see people starting to move back, and what was going on during those times was that APD would start pushing up on protesters. They would start moving up, and it was usually without warning. And the problem with that is that when they moved forward without any warning, is that they would hit, they would mace, they would shoot people that that was in their way. And again, there was just no way for you to know to move out of the way because they gave no prior warning to what they were going to do next. And I thought that was really mean, to say the least, of APD. I mean, they could have warned protesters, but most of the time they chose not to and just decided to do what they do. You could tell here most people are now running back.
This man in particular here.
And I believe they were shooting people too at this point.
I've seen protesters get hit by the rocks now.
Oh, and so once people moved up the hill had a bunch of rocks on it. There was like a really like sandy area, like you could see right there. It's full of rocks, and protesters were picking rocks up and shooting them at APD. Right here, I was getting shot at. They were shooting in my direction directly. They thought this is where the rocks were coming from, and so most protesters moved up the hill to avoid getting hit. But again, it was also on the hill where people were throwing rocks from. So it was just chaos. I mean, yeah, the officers saw a rock getting thrown from the hill and they shot at the hill, whether or not they could confirm you were the one throwing rocks.
They're shooting this way.
Can we get out that way? Come on. Come on.
We're about to shoot this way.
So at that moment, they were shooting directly where I was. And right there, I think I narrowly missed a bullet, like narrowly, it like scraped my knee type of like narrowly missing a rubber bullet. And I was enclosed too, like there was no way out of that particular area. It was like there was a wall, it was all around us. The only way out was to go towards the shooting. I ended up having to climb a fence, climb the wall to try to make it out because it was just too dangerous to go back the direction I came from because they were shooting directly at us.
The crowds, I don't know how or why.
As you can see, there wasn't a lot of security in terms of keeping vehicles away from where the protesters were. There weren't any particular roadblocks that were keeping protesters safe. And right here, I was asking APD if they were going to shoot because I was right in front of them and I didn't want to get hit. That officer was macing.
All right, guys, I had to crouch because they're shooting or they're spraying people right behind me, so sorry about that.
was really trying to capture here, you know, the way
Honestly,
that
there's no safe
APD
place to be here
was targeting protesters.
because
Like,
you either get shot by police or you're near enough the
you could
police and
tell
you're
that,
hit
you
by the
know,
items flying
they're all kind of just looking to see where
from
they're
the
going to
crowd to
shoot.
the police.
I
So,
mean, it doesn't, like, again, it
it's
doesn't look
really
like there's any
nerve-wracking to
particular, like,
be out here.
organization or person strategizing the way that they're going to use their non-lethal. It's just really reactive and sometimes incredibly impulsive.
It's okay. The officers know I'm here just to report.
And also, in that instance, I felt like it was a better idea if I was really close to them than if I was, you know, closer to where the protesters were. Because if I was right in front of them, they knew what I was doing. They acknowledged my presence. They knew that I wasn't threatening
I don't know
them.
where the
They were
semi
aware
went.
that I was
Good question. It
recording.
seems like they're out of the way though.
Being out in the
People are
crowd,
throwing
somebody
water
next to
bottles
me could have thrown a
and
rock and
hijing
I
all
might have
cars.
been shot as a result. So I felt, even though it seems counterintuitive, being that close to them
There's some of the
would
individuals who
keep
just
me
got
from getting
maced.
shot. I mean, unless, you know, in that instance, they directly targeted me,
When they say less lethal,
I
they
wouldn't
mean that there's
have been hit
definitely
or
the
shot.
possibility that they're gonna get killed. Officer Carter's aiming his pepper spray at this man over here.
See, like, that man had his hands up and they were just ready to, again, mace anyone for anything at a moment's notice. Anything they felt was threatening, and sometimes some of the things weren't threatening at all. Sometimes there's just really, like, sudden movement someone accidentally made and they got maced or shot as a result of those, I'd say, natural movements in such a tense situation. And they started shooting there and macing, and believe it or not, being where I am, I still felt and got some of that mace on my face and on my body. There's just no, you know, there's no avoiding it when you're that close to it. If you're close to OC spray, I keep calling it mace, OC spray, you're gonna feel it. You know, it gets everyone in that area, whether it gets in your lungs or on your arms.
Do I get back? Hey, I'm gonna move. Can nobody shoot me?
I was too scared to move in this instance. I wanted to move because there was a lot of, you know, OC spray going around. They were starting to shoot people, and I wanted to get out of the way of danger, but there was just no way. I was stuck there because I was afraid that if I just walked away from them, I would get shot or I would get hit, or, you know, I was too scared to move out of that area. Like, and nobody was listening to me. Like, they weren't paying attention to me. And then luckily I was pulled away by a protester who had just been sprayed. So he was really nice and tried to get me out of danger.
Don't worry, guys. I'm safe. Look, I'm as safe as I can be. Being in this protest, like I said, there's just nowhere to be where you're not in danger.
Yeah, there's literally no way to be safe in situations like this. No matter what APD says about the way that they try to handle the situation,
very important.
No matter what APD says about them, like, trying to be careful about who they shoot, like, it's untrue. Like, it's simply untrue. Like, the truth and the fact of the matter is, you're gonna get hit. You're potentially gonna get hit if you're in the crowd, even if you're not doing anything. It's just a fact. You know, I don't think APD could deny that. At that point, no matter what you're doing, you might get shot. And a lot of the conversations with APD after this event were like, well, no, we only shot people throwing rocks and stuff. But that's, again, that's just it's just not true. Those are lies. Like, they weren't trying to only shoot people throwing rocks. Like they were just shooting wherever they felt the threat was coming from without being sure that that's where the threat was
Just
actually
recording.
coming from.
I'm with.
For example, like right there,
I'm
I
just
was getting
recording, man.
aimed at and an
No trouble
officer
here.
briefly threatened to shoot me because of where I
I'm
was
just
standing.
documenting this. I won't hurt you. Yo, 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 yo. I'm up. Someone just threw a glass bottle right next to me. Almost got hit.
So the other danger with a situation like that, though, was that people were throwing rocks and water bottles at the police. And if you were close enough, most people sometimes fell short of where the police was. So if you were like around the area where I was, you could even get hit by protesters throwing water bottles. I mean, that's just again, one of the
I'm just
dangers of
recording.
being so
Just recording.
close.
Just recording.
This is where things really started to feel like they were going
Just
to turn
recording.
into a full-on riot. I mean, it was at this point that I felt that what I was about to live was going to be something similar to what I was witnessing in Minneapolis. Because people started that car on fire. I don't think the owner of the car was present. The car had probably been parked there for a long time. Um, but APD initially went out there to try to do something about it. I don't know what. Like they stood there for I think a couple minutes before they retreated and walked away from the burning car. And seeing them walk away was really cementing that feeling I was having at that moment, that this was about to turn into something a lot more like Minneapolis and a lot less peaceful, like it eventually did turn out later on. And at that point, there's just no knowing who's doing what. I mean, there's so many people everywhere. There was fireworks going on. I mean, there was just nothing police could do reasonably to try to stop any of the chaos. I mean, they were kind of. In this instance, watching what PD was doing, I think that they and throughout the entire weekend, like where things were really starting to get tense, were escalating. I really believe that APD was really just working to escalate the situation, maybe unknowingly. I mean, I don't know what the head of command was thinking, with the less lethal and everything. But it was really obvious to me that every time they shot at the crowd, every time somebody got sprayed with OC spray, every time someone got hit by a baton, the protesters would just get angrier and there would be more rocks and then more OC spray and then more less lethal. I mean, it was like a
Things are getting pretty tense here.
self-perpetuating
People
cycle
are
of
starting to.
escalation. It was really obvious to me that PD was taking or like playing a huge part in the way that things escalated. There's absolutely no question about it. I mean, it's so obvious that when PD stopped using less lethal, things got more peaceful. Like it's just it was that straightforward. I mean, PD obviously made mistakes. APD made mistakes approaching the situation. and you could see them up on that bridge. And that was scary because they were shooting less lethal from up there. So if you got shot, you likely got hit in the head when they were shooting people from up on top of the bridge. It was ridiculous. I mean, I don't think there was any reason for them to be shooting people from the top of the bridge. It's just too much. Like, it's too dangerous. Like, we know what less lethal does to people that get shot in the head. So those moments were really scary because now there was PD behind me in this case, and then there was PD above me, ready to shoot me at a moment's notice. So right here we are outside the Texas Capitol, and the protesters, I think, marched from APD to this area. The Capitol and APD headquarters have been the two areas where most of the protests have happened. They're a couple blocks from each other. It's a long walk, but protesters usually walk between the two areas during protests. And this is where you start to see some of the first leaders of the protests emerge. That man standing on that platform, I think he's standing on one of the pillars, or one of the little, poles that keeps cars from driving in. He gave a speech at some point in this video and was really good about guiding the crowds. It was because of him that protesters marched all around the Capitol, and the objective there was trying to get, the officers to follow us around all over the Capitol. There's a lot of people, in this area, and I feel like the majority of the people here, because I know that during this time I got a lot of questions about whether or not the people present at this protest were local, and I believe most people were from Austin, Texas. Especially because when I started talking more to protesters, because at some point during this feed I lost the stream. I started to realize a lot of the people were from Austin and were just out there trying to trying to get their voices heard. But Austin's huge, and again, if there's a lot of people out there, it's just because it's a big city.
I just want to say I'm being told to step back, and I'm behind the fence. They're just kind of trying to push people back for no reason.
And here we start seeing some of the other leaders that eventually emerged from, these protests present. I mean, obviously, a lot of these individuals were there from the very beginning, like, Peace in Austin, the MRP group. I mean, they were all pretty much out there since day one. And you could see it in the footage, and a lot of these people I came to know very well. In this moment, they all seemed like strangers to me, but it became apparent that they were really dedicated to keeping the movement going, and most of them still, are continuing to go out there every single night. And it's been like 3 weeks now, definitely a little bit over a month, maybe, since these protests started. If not, we're right about it, a month. A lot of the officers complained about the insults being thrown at them. I mean, they were really upset, and they said that they didn't want to engage in dialogue because of all the insults. But I think at this moment in the protests, in the first, 3 days. It's absolutely not true. I think that PD didn't interact with protesters because they were more busy shooting and spraying them down than anything else. So, and right now you see DPS with the riot gear, and I did say that APD changed their tactics, but to this day, DPS, which is the state patrol, has not gotten rid of their riot gear. They have not changed any of their tactics. They've done the exact same thing from day one. Right here, I was definitely putting myself a little bit at risk by being a little bit in front of the fence rather than behind it. The DPS was asking everyone to move behind the fence, which was kind of tough because, you had hundreds of protesters behind you and trying to move there it was just, it was tough. Like, you had to push your way through the crowd to be able to go back, and there's a lot of people that are angry and stuff, and so that's not something you want to be doing. You don't want to be pushing people out of the way. So they're trying to intimidate protesters. In this case, DPS moved a little bit forward and closer to the fence. I feel that was a little bit unnecessary because besides me and like the two protesters that were a little bit forward from the fence, there was nobody, trying to breach the grounds or anything. As you can tell, everyone was behind the fence. Everyone was keeping the distance they were asking for. A DPS here was just trying to intimidate the crowd. There's absolutely no reason they needed to move forward. Nobody was threatening to get any closer than I was. I was as close as I could have gotten, or I was probably the protester that got the closest. So you could see here that medics are trying to bring someone that was injured to get more medical attention, and they started shooting protesters, and they even started shooting at the people seeking medical attention. It was ridiculous. It was just so much chaos. Again, APD will tell us, and they said it repeatedly throughout the week throughout the last month, that they were just shooting people that were causing chaos. But it was obvious to me that in these cases, there was absolutely no thinking or no tactics, rather more impulsive action on behalf of PD. It was it was a little frustrating, and I was very emotional about it, and it was really tough for me not to say anything or jump in, right? Because in those moments, I really saw things that I thought I needed to speak up about or do something about. But it's in those moments that you realize that there's just so much going on, that maybe even speaking up or trying to help could end up in you getting injured or hurt, much more than if you just kind of step away and let things happen. I've spoken to some veterans, and they'll tell me that this situation was probably worse than war, because again, even in the military, trained to only shoot at or injure people that are very obvious threats. And in this case, you may not have been a threat, but you were still shot at and injured because you were simply part of the crowd. But I think that about does it for week one. A lot more happened than this video could possibly show. This is 30 minutes of what was an entire week of a lot of really difficult moments. There was definitely a lot more that happened that made me very emotional. There was moments I had to step away and take a breath to, get myself back to earth so that I can continue filming. Yeah, but thanks for watching, guys. I really appreciate it. I hope that these videos maybe help me provide a little bit more context about these situations. This is our very first episode of Hiram Rewind, and we will be doing many more of these as we get more highlight videos of the happenings of the Austin, Texas protest. And don't forget, you could reach all these videos, all this footage on my website, imHiram.com. That's imHiram.com. And then don't forget to follow my Facebook page, facebook.com/imHiram. And we're also on Twitch, twitch.tv/imHiramG. Thank you guys so much. Again, this is one episode of many more we're going to have. If you have any other questions about what happened on week 1, don't be afraid to reach out. Have a good day, guys.